In September 1944, the Allied armies stood on the brink of something extraordinary. After months of brutal fighting through the hedgerows of Normandy, they had finally broken free. The Germans were retreating in chaos across France and Belgium, leaving behind a trail of abandoned equipment and shattered dreams of holding back the Allied tide. Victory seemed so close you could almost taste it. But wars are rarely won by momentum alone, and the autumn of 1944 would prove that even the mightiest military machines can stumble when ambition outweighs reality. Picture this: thousands of paratroopers falling from the sky like deadly confetti, their parachutes blotting out the sun above the peaceful Dutch countryside. Below them, entire armored divisions are racing along narrow roads, desperate to reach bridges that might not even be standing when they arrive. This is Operation Market Garden, the largest airborne operation in military history, and quite possibly the most controversial gamble the Allies ever took. The man behind this audacious plan was Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, the hero of El Alamein, the general who had chased Rommel across the African desert and broken German resistance in Normandy. Montgomery was at the absolute peak of his fame in September 1944, riding high on a wave of victories that seemed to prove his tactical genius was unstoppable. But even heroes can make mistakes that cost thousands of lives. Montgomery's vision was breathtaking in its scope and terrifying in its complexity. He wanted to punch a corridor 62 miles deep into German territory, seizing 9 crucial bridges in a single coordinated strike. If successful, the operation would put Allied forces across the Rhine River and create a direct invasion route into the heart of Nazi Germany. The war could be over by Christmas. The plan required perfect execution of 2 simultaneous operations. Market, the airborne component, would drop 35,000 paratroopers and glider troops behind enemy lines to capture and hold the bridges. Garden, the ground offensive, would see British armoured divisions racing up a single highway to link up with the scattered airborne forces before the Germans could mount an effective counterattack. On paper, it looked brilliant. In reality, it was about to become one of the bloodiest disasters in Allied military history. The political pressures driving Montgomery's decision were immense. V-2 rockets were falling on London, launched from sites in the Netherlands that needed to be neutralized. The British government was demanding action, and Montgomery saw Market Garden as the solution to multiple problems at once. But there was another factor at play, one that would prove just as dangerous as any German panzer division. Montgomery was locked in a bitter rivalry with Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower over the direction of the war effort. Eisenhower favored a broad front strategy, advancing into Germany along a front several hundred miles wide. Montgomery wanted a concentrated thrust, a single powerful blow that would shatter German defenses and end the war quickly. The problem was that Montgomery wasn't the only general with this idea. George Patton, that aggressive American tank commander, was pushing for his own concentrated offensive further south. Both men saw themselves as the natural leader of such an operation, and neither was willing to play second fiddle to the other. This rivalry would influence every aspect of Market Garden's planning and execution. When Montgomery met with Eisenhower at Brussels airport to argue for his plan, the confrontation was explosive. Montgomery actually tore up Eisenhower's messages in front of him, demanding priority in supplies and support for his northern offensive. Eisenhower was caught in an impossible position. Despite his reservations about Montgomery's aggressive demands, he found himself under intense pressure from Washington to deploy the 1st Allied Airborne Army as quickly as possible. These elite paratroopers had been sitting idle for months, and American politicians were growing impatient with their lack of action. The president wanted results, and Eisenhower needed to deliver them. Against his better judgment, Eisenhower gave Montgomery what he wanted. Market Garden received limited priority in supplies, with promises of additional aircraft and trucks to deliver 1,000 tons of materials daily. But this support came with a crucial caveat that Montgomery either ignored or misunderstood completely. The operation was approved only as part of Eisenhower's broader front strategy, not as the concentrated thrust Montgomery envisioned. This fundamental misunderstanding would haunt every aspect of the operation's planning and execution. The intelligence picture painted a troubling portrait that should have given planners serious pause. Ultra intercepts revealed something that made veteran commanders deeply uncomfortable. The 9th and 10th SS Panzer divisions had been spotted moving into the exact area where British paratroopers would be landing near Arnhem. These weren't the demoralized, retreating troops that Allied propaganda suggested. These were hardened SS veterans, battle-tested and dangerous. Eisenhower was concerned enough to send his Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, to raise these concerns directly with Montgomery on September 15th. The conversation that followed would become legendary among military historians for all the wrong reasons. Smith laid out the intelligence reports in stark detail, explaining that the airborne forces would be dropping directly into the path of elite German armored units. Montgomery's response was both characteristic and catastrophic. He dismissed Smith's concerns with the kind of arrogance that had made him famous and would soon make him infamous. The field marshal refused to alter his plans, insisting that his intelligence was superior and that any German resistance would be minimal and easily overcome. After all, hadn't he been right about everything else so far? But Montgomery's confidence was built on a foundation of assumptions that were about to crumble under the weight of reality. He had fundamentally misunderstood the terrain his forces would be fighting in. The Netherlands wasn't the open tank country of North Africa or the bocage of Normandy. This was a landscape of narrow roads, soft ground, and countless waterways that would channel his armored divisions into killing zones. The roads that were supposed to carry British tanks racing to the rescue were barely wide enough for 2 vehicles to pass. When those roads became clogged with burning tanks and abandoned equipment, there would be no way around, no alternate routes, no room for the kind of tactical flexibility that had made Montgomery famous in the desert. Operation Market Garden stands as one of history's most powerful reminders that even the greatest military minds can fall victim to their own success. Montgomery's audacious gamble, born from a combination of political pressure, personal rivalry, and dangerous overconfidence, would ultimately cost the Allies over 17,000 casualties in just 9 days of fighting. The paratroopers who dropped into the Netherlands that September morning were some of the finest soldiers the world had ever seen. They fought with a courage that defied comprehension, holding positions against impossible odds while waiting for relief that would never come. At Arnhem Bridge, Lieutenant Colonel John Frost and his men held out for 4 days and nights against elite SS Panzer divisions, their final radio message a testament to their sacrifice. Out of ammunition. God save the King. But courage alone cannot overcome flawed planning, ignored intelligence, and the harsh realities of terrain and logistics. Market Garden failed not because of cowardice or incompetence, but because ambition blinded its architects to the fundamental truth that even the best plans require more than wishful thinking to succeed. The operation that was supposed to end the war by Christmas instead prolonged it, teaching the Allies a brutal lesson about the dangers of overreach. Sometimes the greatest gambles exact the highest prices, and victory demands not just courage, but wisdom.